My husband Kian's female graduate student Lila sent me a photo. In the picture, my alpha lay naked beside her, with a message that screamed defiance. Luna Elara, Professor Kian was so passionate, he's tired and asleep. He asked me to tell you he won't be home tonight. I stared at the photo for 3 seconds, then lightly tapped my screen, taking a screenshot of the photo and chat history. I immediately sent it to both the Black Spire Pack's Council Snapchat group and the entire Chicago University faculty and student Snapchat group. Congratulations, Lila, on successfully claiming your spot by Alpha Kian's side. Sent, powered off all in one swift motion. When I switched my phone back on 2 days later, the entire North American werewolf community was already in an uproar. 0 inches the photo. Kian lay naked, sinking into the hotel's down pillows, with Lila, equally unclothed, sleeping beside him. I zoomed in on the picture, my gaze falling on the red marks on his neck, and a smile touched my lips. No reply, just a screenshot saved. Then I tapped into the 2 most active group chats, and sent it with 1 click. Congratulations, Lila, on successfully claiming your spot by Alpha Kian's side. The moment the message popped up, I silenced all notifications and placed my phone screen down on the table. The world outside abruptly fell silent. Beyond the apartment's floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago's city lights stretched out like a silent, endless sea. I walked to the liquor cabinet, pulled out an unopened bottle of whiskey, and poured myself half a glass. The amber liquid clung to the glass, leaving slow tear-like trails. Today was Kian's and my 3rd wedding anniversary. Kian had sent a voice message via FaceTime that afternoon, saying the closing dinner for the academic conference was unavoidable, with several elder researchers attending, so he had to be there. He said he'd try to come home early to make up for tonight. So his dinner was this. His makeup was this kind of makeup. I carried my glass to the dining table. The black wolf figurine on the cake stood with its head held high, proud and solitary. I reached out a finger and gently pushed it. The black wolf toppled into the cream, its head snapping off. What a shame. I drained the glass in 1 gulp, the pungent liquid burning my throat. Good. Years ago, the Black Spire Pack was severely hit by a winter blizzard. Our supply lines completely collapsed, so we proactively sought an alliance marriage with the Frostvale Pack, hoping to use their resources to overcome the crisis. My father had planned to pick just any Omega, but I'd seen Kian once at a pack summit and was drawn to him. I personally canceled a territory cooperation agreement with the Iron Claw Pack that had been in discussion for 6 months. For 3 consecutive months, I flew to the Black Spire Pack's territory 3 times, pulling all-nighters to rework their winter supply chain plan, helping them reduce winter losses by 30%. I proved to all the elders that I wasn't just there to be a figurehead. Luna. Kian had held my hands then, swearing before the elders, Elara, I'll protect you for life. We'll govern the pack together. Vows, the more solemnly they're made, the more cheaply they're broken. Since he broke our pact first, this marriage, bound by pack interests and youthful infatuation, should end here. I didn't cry or make a scene. I pressed the intercom and called Ethan, my guard captain, whom I'd brought from the Frostvale Pack. Organize and load all my personal belongings and research data. I instructed, pointing to the study and walk-in closet. Leave Kian's personal items untouched. Register all the gifts he gave me and place them in the living room storage. They'll be returned to the main villa tomorrow. I walked into the study myself, collecting my authored papers and the original Alliance documents into a fireproof safe. The photos from our Rocky Mountains expeditions, our picture from when he became a tenured professor. I simply placed them neatly in a file box. No need to destroy anything, just as there was no need to be hysterical over a relationship that had turned sour. The break needed to be clean, dignified, and absolute. 2 hours later, everything was loaded into the SUV convoy. I took one last look at the villa. Our wedding photo still hung on the wall, him holding my hand, his gaze earnest and passionate. I nodded to Ethan. Let's go. The cars drove out of the community, merging into the late-night traffic. I didn't look back. My new residence was a secluded cabin I'd bought long ago on the edge of the Black Spire Pack territory, always left empty. One always needed a fallback. Now it seemed that decision was absolutely correct. By the time we arrived at the cabin, the sky was already growing light. Ethan and his team helped me settle my belongings. I sent them back to rest, keeping only one trusted aide for external liaison. I took a hot shower, then sat at the solid wood table and opened my laptop, quickly sorting through the entire situation in my mind. Lila, Kian's 2nd batch of graduate students, had been enrolled for a year and a half. Young, beautiful, always wearing sweet white peach perfume, impressive academic performance, and always knew how to work a room. That was everyone's assessment of her in the department. Every time she saw me, she'd say, with just the right amount of reverence, Luna Elara, your model is truly incredible. Professor Kian often says you're the most talented ecologist he's ever met. Before, I'd simply taken it as a junior's respect for a senior. Now looking back, every seemingly casual consultation was a probe into Kian's and my core research progress. Every act of thoughtfulness in front of Kian subtly made me seem bossy and cold in comparison. My friend Bryn had warned me then that Kian and Lila were getting too close, but at the time, I'd just laughed it off. I thought, how much trouble could one girl stir up? Now I realize I was too naive, too confident, so confident that I ignored all the early warning signs. Like Kian coming home later and later from field research, his jacket occasionally carrying a faint, almost undetectable hint of white peach. Like him subconsciously starting to overturn my territory ecological plans, his tone familiar, as if repeating someone else's words. Elara, this migration corridor design is too idealistic. Lila's model data is more reliable. Lila checked it. The prey density in this forest area has discrepancies. We'd better observe it for another quarter. Lila. Her name appeared in his mouth with abnormal frequency. And I, foolishly, kept attributing all this to normal teacher-student communication and academic discussion. Until that photo, like a poisoned dagger, tore through all the fabricated peace. I closed my eyes, and that image reappeared in my mind. Kian's sleeping face, and Lila's provocative caption. Why did she dare to do it? She was certain I wouldn't make a fuss. She calculated that as Luna, I valued the pack's reputation above all else, and would never air our dirty laundry publicly. She calculated that I cherished my academic reputation, and wouldn't let private matters affect the core cooperative projects between our packs. She calculated that I would confront her privately, or cry and argue with Kian, and in the end accept a perfunctory explanation of lost control after drinking, merely being cared for. Then she would play the innocent victim, gaining Kian's sympathy and making me appear jealous and overbearing, slowly eroding my position. Too bad. She miscalculated. I, Elara, was never one to grit my teeth and bear it. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play with my cards face up. Let the entire pack, and all the faculty and students, bear witness to your love. I don't know when I fell asleep, only that it was an unusually deep sleep. 2 days later, I woke naturally. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting dappled shadows on the wooden floor. A new room, but the air was filled with my usual pine incense, a familiar sense of calm. I sat up and picked up the phone beside my pillow. 2 days off, it was time to turn it on and see how far the storm had escalated. Taking a deep breath, I pressed the power button. The phone vibrated, and the screen lit up. The next second it vibrated wildly, buzz, almost flying out of my hand. Hundreds of missed calls, dozens of unread messages. I scanned the call list. Kian was at the top, with 99 missed calls. Below him were pack elders, colleagues from the department, my friends, and some unfamiliar numbers. I silenced my phone and tossed it aside. I got up and went to the kitchen, making myself a simple breakfast. Fried eggs, toasted whole wheat bread, and a cup of hot cocoa. I ate slowly, methodically, as if the world-shaking storm outside had nothing to do with me. After breakfast and washing the dishes, I picked up the hot phone again. I ignored all of Kian's messages and first clicked into the Blackspire Pack's Council Snapchat group. 2 days was enough for many things to ferment. The group messages had exploded. My congratulatory message was like a bomb. Below it was several minutes of dead silence. Then the first to jump out was an elder, posting a shocked emoji. Immediately after, various whispers began to flood the screen. What the hell? What's going on? Has Luna been hacked? Is that Alpha Kian in the photo? Oh my god, the information is overwhelming. Did that student go too far? Public opinion quickly split into several factions. Most people adopted a wait-and-see attitude, waiting for more definitive proof, while a few added fuel to the fire, eager for drama. A few pack members who were usually close to Lila were the first to jump in and defend her. Everyone, let's not spread rumors. I've known Lila for almost a year. She's not that kind of person. There must be some misunderstanding. Someone immediately echoed. Exactly. Alpha Kian and Luna Elara's relationship has always been stable, and with the pack alliance in place, how could something like this happen? Maybe it's someone maliciously photoshopping or spreading rumors to intentionally sow discord between the packs. Such flimsy defenses didn't last long, quickly buried by a flood of emerging details. Rumors? A hotel room photo has leaked, and it's still rumors? The person above hasn't looked closely, have they? The post even shows her pearl hairpin left on the bedside table. Can that be fake? I've always thought something was off with her. She's always holed up in her professor's office, her mind not on experiment data at all. During the last territory expedition, she kept trying to shield Alpha Kian from drinks, getting completely drunk herself. Kian even had to take her home. Once the tide turned, everyone piled on. Lila's carefully cultivated, pure academic image was shattered in that moment. After nearly an hour of the incident fermenting, Lila, as the other party involved, finally appeared. She posted a lengthy message simultaneously in the Pack Council channel and the department-wide email list, full of tearful indignation. To all my Pack members, teachers, and classmates, I apologize for occupying public resources with my private matters. Last night at the academic closing dinner, Professor Kian was plied with a lot of strong liquor by several colleagues from a neighboring university and ended up too drunk to stand. As his student, I had a responsibility to ensure his safety, so I took a taxi and brought him to a nearby hotel to rest. The professor vomited all over himself, so I helped him change out of his dirty clothes. After settling him in, I left. I originally wanted to call Alpha Kian's beta to inform them, but the phone was unanswered. In a panic, I messaged Luna Elara to explain the situation. My message might have been ambiguously worded, causing everyone to misunderstand. It truly wasn't what everyone thinks. I'm still shaking with fright, not knowing who would want to ruin my reputation like this. Professor Kian and I are completely innocent, just a pure teacher-student relationship. Please stop spreading rumors. Luna Elara, if you see this message, could you please explain the situation? As a young Omega, if my reputation is ruined, I truly don't know how I'll be able to survive in academia and the pack. Finally, she specifically mentioned me. What a fragile, innocent-looking manipulator. This PR statement was watertight, portraying herself as a dutiful but innocently wronged victim, shifting all the blame onto me, saying I misunderstood, that I made a mountain out of a molehill, ruining a young woman's reputation. As expected after her statement, the mood in the channel quietly shifted. Several well-meaning but naive individuals immediately stepped forward to mediate. So that's what happened. I knew there must be a misunderstanding. I wonder who was so heartless, taking things out of context to ruin a young girl's reputation. Luna Elara did seem a bit impatient this time. She should have at least clarified things before letting the message spread. It's truly damaging to Lila. Exactly, she's a young Omega. How will she face people now? Poor Lila, she's so innocent. I looked at these words, and the cold sneer on my lips grew wider. Playing a public opinion war? Lila, you're still too green. Just then a call came in. The name flashing on the screen made my eyes turn cold. It wasn't Kian, it was Kian's mother, Mara. I let it ring for a long time, picking it up only in the last second before it would automatically hang up. Hello. My voice betrayed no emotion. On the other end, Mara's sharp, furious roar immediately erupted. Elara, you finally picked up. Are you insane? What exactly are you trying to do? Are you trying to ruin Kian? Mara's voice was hoarse and cracked with rage, mixed with the crisp sound of porcelain shattering in the background. I could feel her hysteria even through the phone. I twirled a pen between my fingers, my phone flat on the desk on speakerphone, without even a flicker of an eyebrow. After she finished her tirade, I slowly spoke, my tone as calm as if discussing the weather. Mom, please speak slowly, I'm listening. I just don't understand what I've done to make you so angry. You're still playing dumb with me. Mara's volume shot up another 8 octaves, making the speaker vibrate slightly. Look at the post you sent. Now it's spread throughout the pack, even to several neighboring packs. Where does Kian put his face? Where do we Black Spire pack put our face? I didn't interrupt, casually flipping open the book on my desk, patiently waiting for her to vent. Her reaction was entirely within my expectations. Valuing reputation over right and wrong, and fiercely protecting her own to the point of irrationality. This was the disposition I'd figured out on my first day of marriage. When she finally stopped, breathing heavily, I slowly began. Mom, instead of questioning me, why don't you first ask your precious son if he had me in mind while he was lying next to another woman? An alpha out socializing, getting drunk and being looked after, isn't that perfectly normal? Mara's tone was self-righteous. Lila, a young girl, kindly took care of his safety. You don't appreciate it, and you're letting rumors fly around, ruining her reputation. Where are your manners? Where is your graciousness as Luna? I gently tapped the desk with my fingertips, a cold sneer in my heart, but my face remained calm. My manners dictate that my mate does not sleep in another woman's hotel room on our wedding anniversary. And certainly not that the woman has sex with my man and then sends me photos to flaunt it. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the phone. Then Mara's tone shifted from anger to righteous favoritism. So what? Which alpha doesn't have a female confidant outside? Do you have to make such a public spectacle of it? Can't you just tolerate it for Kian's future for the sake of the pack? Tolerate? I sounded as if I'd heard the biggest joke. Mom, a Luna of the werewolf pack never tolerates such things. You. What kind of attitude is that? Mara was clearly choked by my words. Elara, I'm telling you, we Black Spire pack will absolutely not tolerate a jealous Luna. You immediately go to the pack council Snapchat group, and to Kian's department group, and explain clearly that it was a joke you made. Apologize to Lila, and this matter will be over. Apologize. The curve of my lips grew colder. Does she even deserve it? You ungrateful woman. Don't think Kian can't live without you. I'm telling you, there are plenty of women who want to be Luna. That's wonderful, I replied casually. Have him replace me immediately. I certainly won't stand in his way. You just wait. I'll make Kian divorce you right now. Women like you should be cast out with nothing, sent back to your Frostvale pack. Fine, I said. I'll wait for the subpoena. With that, I hung up the phone and blocked her. All in one swift motion. Muddying the waters, twisting the truth, and always defending her precious son. That was my dear mother-in-law. I had experienced it before. My phone vibrated again. This time it was Bryn, my best friend and the PAC's chief physician. I answered. Elara, you finally turned your phone on. Are you okay? Bryn's anxious voice came through. I'm fine. Hearing her voice, my taut nerves relaxed slightly. Good, you scared me to death. That move of yours was brilliant. Now the entire northern werewolf community is talking about it. Kian's department probably can't even get any experiments done today. Everyone's too busy gossiping. Bryn's voice held a hint of gleeful excitement. I'm fine and I'm doing great. The more attention, the better. I want it to be a spectacle. Well done. Bryn didn't hide her support. You can't be soft on a muddle-headed man like that and a scheming homewrecker. But what are you going to do next? I heard that Lila is no easy opponent. Her tone became somber. She's telling everyone she was wrongly accused, that you can't tolerate her as a junior, making many unsuspecting people think you're a jealous, evil Luna. I know, I read her long post. I picked up the organized file folder from the table. Don't rush, let her perform for now. The biggest mistake in a public opinion war is to let the opponent control the narrative. She wants to play the victim and gain sympathy, so I'll give her enough stage to perform. The harder she plays the victim now, the more innocent she portrays herself, the harder she'll fall when the undeniable proof comes out. I'm never interested in just a war of words with her. I tapped the file folder. What I want is for her academic qualifications to be revoked, for her to be completely blacklisted from the North American werewolf research community, with no chance of even touching core projects. So, what are your plans for today? Just staying in the cabin? Bryn asked. I looked at the bright sunshine outside the window and slowly said, No. I'm going to the university. There are some things I need to retrieve personally. And it's time to meet the two main characters. All right. Bryn's voice was excited. Do you need me to come with you? To back you up? I'm free today and can come anytime. No need. I declined her kind offer. This is my battle and I'll fight it myself. Hanging up the phone, I walked into the bedroom and opened the wardrobe. I chose a charcoal gray suit skirt, sharp in its cut and full of presence, paired with black ankle boots. Then I sat at the vanity and applied sophisticated, sharp makeup. Looking at the radiant woman with cold eyes in the mirror, I smiled with satisfaction. Elara, welcome back. This show has just begun. I grabbed my car keys and left, my destination the Chicago University Administration Building. I wanted to see just how far they'd taken this act without me, the vicious shrew, present. My car was a black Land Rover, a gift from the Black Spire Pack elders to us the year Kian became alpha. Thinking about it now, it was ironic. The car drove steadily towards the campus, where I had shared a research lab with him, and where a veritable trap awaited me. The Land Rover pulled into the exclusive faculty parking spot. I turned off the engine but didn't immediately get out. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. Lips red as blood, ice cold as ice. Good, this was the battle attire I needed. I pushed the door open and stepped out, my boots clicking crisply on the polished floor. The sound amplified in the empty garage like war drums. Entering the elevator, I pressed the top floor directly. The department heads and Kian's offices were both on this level. The elevator doors opened to a familiar hallway, familiar lab signs. But today's atmosphere was entirely different. The usually quiet and orderly office area was now filled with an eerie silence. Everyone sat at their workstations, pretending to read literature or conduct experiments, but their wandering eyes, perked ears, and occasional furtive taps on their keyboards betrayed them. The air was thick with gossip and speculation, mingled with a faint, almost imperceptible trace of white peach perfume. When I appeared in their field of vision in a striking black suit skirt, the entire office area seemed to be paused. All eyes simultaneously fixated on me. Shock, curiosity, sympathy, schadenfreude. A complex web of emotions converged, enveloping me. I walked straight ahead, chin slightly raised, my pace unwavering, heading directly towards the end of the hallway. There was no need to care about the onlookers' gazes. My objective was clear, and had been all along. To retrieve what was rightfully mine. The sound of my boots was the only noise in the oppressive silence, each step landing like a strike on everyone's raw nerves. They watched me as if I were the leading lady making a grand entrance in an annual drama. I walked past them expressionlessly. The closer I got to the office, the clearer the whispers became. Oh my God, Luna Elara is really here. Dressed like that. Is she here to declare war? This is going to be good. Quick, open a Snapchat group and start a live stream. Lila's still in Professor Kian's office. I saw her go in crying this morning, and she hasn't come out since. I heard these voices, and a cold sneer flickered across my lips. Excellent, the audience was all in place. I reached the tightly closed wooden door. The door's soundproofing was good, but I could still faintly hear suppressed, intermittent sobbing from inside. It was Lila's voice. I didn't knock. Under everyone's gaze, I simply turned the doorknob and pushed the door open forcefully. The moment the door swung open, the scene inside clearly reflected in my eyes, and in the countless peeking eyes in the hallway. Inside the office, Kian stood by the sofa, and Lila sat on the guest sofa, crying piteously, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Kian held a tissue in his hand, leaning slightly forward, about to offer it to her. His face was filled with annoyance and reluctance. Hearing the door open, both of them simultaneously looked towards the entrance. Lila saw me, and her crying ceased abruptly, like a cat whose throat had been squeezed. A fleeting look of panic flashed in her eyes, quickly replaced by deeper grievance and tears. The moment Kian recognized me, his whole body froze. His outstretched hand remained suspended in midair, the tissue hovering, creating an almost comical awkwardness. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, observing the deeply moving scene before me. I smiled, breaking the silence. Professor Kian, busy are we? I hope I'm not interrupting. The silence inside Kian's office was so dense it felt as if the air had turned to glass, ready to shatter at the slightest movement. I stood in the doorway, my hands tucked loosely into the pockets of my charcoal gray suit skirt. My posture was relaxed, but my eyes were cold, scanning the room with the precise, clinical detachment of a surgeon preparing an incision. Kian looked as if he had been frozen in mid-motion. The paper tissue in his hand was slightly crumpled, his knuckles white. The faint scent of white peach perfume hung in the air, sweet and cloying, fighting against the sharp, clean pine incense I always wore. Elara. Kian finally spoke, his voice hoarse, dropping into the deep, commanding register he usually used to quiet a room of restless students. What are you doing here? I'm here to collect my things, Professor, I said, my voice smooth and level, carrying perfectly through the open door to the corridor where dozens of ears were strained to listen. I didn't think I'd need an appointment to retrieve my own research. Lila let out a soft, trembling gasp, her hands flying to her face as she shrank back into the cushions of the sofa. The tears in her eyes were artistically perfect, glistening under the fluorescent lights. Lila, she whispered, her voice cracking with just the right amount of terrified reverence. Please, don't look at me like that. The statement I posted, it was all true. I was only trying to protect Professor Kian. He was so drunk, and the beta didn't answer. Lila, I interrupted, my tone mild but sharp enough to cut her off instantly. The adults are speaking. Sit quietly. Lila's mouth snapped shut, her face turning a deep, angry crimson before she quickly forced her features back into a look of fragile, victimized grief. Kian took a step forward, his broad shoulders straightening, his alpha aura flaring slightly in an instinctive attempt to reassert dominance in his own space. Elara, you've gone too far this time. The post you sent to the PAC Council and the department, it's caused absolute chaos. The dean has already called me twice. You've ruined a young girl's reputation over a complete misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I repeated, a small, cold smile touching my lips. I walked past him, my black ankle boots clicking crisply on the hardwood floor. I stopped at his desk, where a leather-bound folder containing our collaborative migration corridor project lay open. Kian, an alpha of the Black Spire Pack, does not get too drunk to stand on standard table wine, I said quietly, looking up to meet his eyes. And even if he did, his protective instincts would never allow an Omega student to undress him, lay beside him naked, and take high-resolution photos of his neck. She was helping me change. Kian's voice rose, a hint of genuine panicked irritation cracking his polished exterior. My shirt was covered in vomit. He was being a responsible student. And the photo? I asked, leaning against his desk, my arms crossed. Was the photo a responsible student project too? Did she send it to my personal phone at 2 in the morning to inform me of your safety? Kian's eyes darted to Lila, his brow furrowing in a sudden sharp look of confusion. What photo? Lila, you told me you sent her a standard text explaining the hotel location. Lila's eyes widened, her chest heaving as she scrambled up from the sofa. Professor, I did. I was in a panic. My fingers must have slipped. I didn't mean to attach that photo. Elara must have taken a screenshot of a temporary file. Mr. Stone, I called out, not looking at her. My guard Ethan stepped into the office, carrying a heavy fireproof safe. Behind him stood the head of the university's IT department, holding a digital tablet. The photo sent from Miss Lila's account was not a temporary file, the IT director said, his voice flat as he read from his screen. It was a high-resolution, uncompressed JPEG, sent via an encrypted, non-fading protocol, designed specifically to prevent server-side deletion. The metadata shows it was taken at 1:14 a.m. using the front-facing camera of her personal device, with the flash manually enabled. The silence in the office area outside became absolute. Furthermore, the IT director continued, the network logs show that Miss Lila accessed the Luna's private research server 3 times between midnight and 2 in the morning from that same hotel room. Kian's face went completely pale. What? She was looking for the original Frostvale climate datasets, Kian, I said, my voice carrying a quiet, devastating clarity. The ones you need to pass the federal review for your upcoming $60 million territory expansion grant. Because without my models, your entire proposal is nothing but a hollow, plagiarized shell. I walked over to the fireproof safe, Ethan immediately entering the security code to pop the lock. I reached in, pulling out my authored papers, my original alliance documents, and the proprietary hard drives containing my raw climate data. The alliance between the Frostvale and Black Spire packs was built on mutual respect and territorial integration. I said, looking Kian dead in the eye. You broke the pact first. So today, the Frostvale pack is officially pulling its research, its data, and its Luna from your territory. I closed the safe with a heavy, final click. You can keep Lila, Kian, but you don't get to keep my work. The cabin on the edge of the Black Spire territory was quiet, the only sound the crackle of the wood-burning stove and the soft, steady rain pattering against the tin roof. System. Frostvale territory integration logs successfully unlinked from the Black Spire pack main server. Connection status, closed. I sat at the solid wood table, my charcoal gray jacket off, my white silk shirt, sleeves rolled up to my forearms. On the desk lay the original Alliance ledger, a heavy leather-bound document signed by Kian's father and mine 3 years ago. Ethan, I said, not looking up from my screen. Has my father been notified? Yes, Luna, Ethan said, standing near the door, his hand resting on his leather belt. The Alpha has already recalled the Frostvale Border Patrol teams. As of 6 o'clock this morning, the shared migration corridor has been closed. The Black Spire hunters are currently blocked from entering our eastern forests. And Kian's mother? Mara has called the main house 7 times, Ethan said, a faint, grim smile touching his lips. Your father told his beta to tell her that he does not discuss pack business with the mothers of unfaithful alphas. I let out a soft, clear laugh. It was the first time in 3 days my chest had felt light. My father was a traditionalist. He had spent his life protecting the Frostvale territory, and he had only agreed to the marriage because Kian had sworn before the elders to treat me as an equal. The moment Kian allowed a graduate student to use his name to humiliate me, the alliance ceased to be a diplomatic partnership and became an insult. The university's Academic Integrity Board has scheduled the hearing for Thursday morning, I said, my fingers flying across the keyboard as I drafted the formal petition. Lila's father is a minor elder in the Black Spire pack. He's already trying to pull strings with the dean to have the case dismissed as a domestic dispute between the Luna and a student. Will they succeed? Ethan asked, his face darkening. Not with the evidence we have, I said, turning the monitor toward him. Look at the timestamps on Lila's research paper. The core ecological model she developed for her thesis was uploaded to her personal drive 3 days before. She even registered for my advanced seminar. The file metadata matches my private server's output from last spring. She didn't just sleep with your husband, Ethan muttered, his eyes wide with disgust. She stole your entire life's work. She thought she was being smart, I said, leaning back in my chair, my teacup warm against my palms. She thought Kian would protect her, that Kian would use his alpha authority to sweep the plagiarism under the rug to protect his own department's funding. But she forgot one thing. What's that? Kian is an alpha, but he is also a coward, I said quietly. When the board threatens his tenure, and the council threatens his title, he won't protect Lila. He'll throw her to the wolves to save his own skin. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Bryn. The Black Spire Council is in an uproar. Kian's mother is throwing a fit in the main hall, demanding the elders strip you of your Luna title for abandoning your post. But the chief of medicine told them that if you leave, the medical supply lines from the Frostvale pack will freeze by next Monday. They're panicking, Elara. They want a meeting. I smiled, my thumb sliding across the screen to reply. Tell them the Luna is currently unavailable. She's busy writing a thesis on the migration patterns of unfaithful wolves. The university's administrative boardroom was dressed in shades of oak and green, colors that usually conveyed stability and academic prestige. But today the room felt like a courtroom. Dean Sterling sat at the head of the long table, his face pale, his wire-rimmed glasses resting on his nose as he reviewed the thick binders Mr. Stone had distributed. Around the table sat the 5 senior members of the academic Integrity Board, their expressions serious. Kian sat on the left, his suit jacket wrinkled, his dark hair messy as if he had spent the night running his fingers through it. Beside him sat Lila, wearing a plain high-necked white dress that made her look like an innocent postgraduate student who had been dragged into a scandal against her will. I sat on the right, my charcoal gray suit sharp and immaculate, my hands folded on my lap. This is a highly unusual case, Dean Sterling said, his voice carrying the dry, tired rhythm of an administrator who spent his life managing faculty disputes. The complaint filed by Luna Elara alleges not just academic misconduct, but systemic plagiarism and illegal access of proprietary research servers by Miss Lila. It's a complete fabrication, Dean, Kian said, his voice carrying that familiar, commanding alpha tone, though his eyes were bloodshot. My wife is acting out of a personal grievance. She's upset about a misunderstanding that occurred at a conference last week, and she's using her academic position to destroy a promising young student's career. A promising career, I said, my voice smooth and level, cutting through his explanation like a cold blade. Miss Lila, could you please explain the core logic of the migration model you submitted for your thesis last month? Lila flinched, her eyes darting to Kian before she quickly forced her chin up, her chest heaving with a soft, defensive sob. It's a multivariate density model, Luna. It calculates the prey distribution based on forest cover and water access. And the core algorithm? I asked. The one on page 42 of your draft. What is the dampening factor you used for the winter wind chill variable? Lila opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her face went completely blank, her fingers clutching the edge of her skirt as she stared at the table. She doesn't know, Dean, I said, sliding my own tablet across the polished wood. Because the dampening factor was a custom variable I developed during my doctoral research at the Frostvale Institute. It's based on a proprietary climate dataset that has never been published. The only way she could have gotten that algorithm was by using Kian's master keycard to access my laboratory's server. That keycard was lost last month, Kian said, his face turning a deep, painful red. I reported it to the security desk. Our office reviewed the security logs from the server room, Professor Kian. The IT director said, stepping forward. The master keycard was not lost. It was used 24 times over the last 6 months, always between midnight and 2 in the morning. And every time the keycard was swiped, Miss Lila's personal phone logged onto the server's local Wi-Fi network. The silence in the room became absolute. Furthermore, the IT director continued, we found 42 draft files on Miss Lila's personal cloud storage that carry the digital signature of Luna Elara's private laptop. The file properties show the author's name was manually changed from Elara to Lila 3 days before the thesis submission. Dean Sterling closed his binder with a sharp, final click. He looked at Kian, his eyes filled with a deep, professional disgust. Professor Kian, the dean said, his voice cold. The university's policy on academic espionage is clear. Miss Lila's thesis is rejected, her graduate student status is suspended indefinitely, and your own tenure. Your tenure is under immediate review by the board. Dean, please. Lila screamed, her face pale, her delicate, white peach persona completely shattering as she grabbed Kian's arm. It wasn't my idea. Kian told me I could use the files. He said his wife was too busy with the pack to notice. He said he'd make sure the review board passed it. Kian didn't look at her. He violently pulled his arm from her grip, his face pale with a cold, savage terror. She's lying, Kian whispered, his hands shaking. I never told her she could use those files. She stole my keycard from my desk. I had no idea she was plagiarizing. Lila stared at him, her eyes wide with a terrifying, wild realization. He had thrown her to the wolves, just as I had said he would. The campus parking lot was quiet when Kian caught up with me. The rain had stopped, the wet asphalt reflecting the gray winter sky like a polished mirror. I stood by the door of my Land Rover, my hand on the handle, when his heavy shadow fell over me. Elara. Kian gasped, his breath ragged, his eyes bloodshot. Please talk to me. We need to fix this. The Pack Council. The elders say the Frostvale supply lines have been cut. The Southern Territory is already running out of winter grain. The alliance is over, Kian, I said, not turning to face him. It can't be over. Kian grabbed my shoulder, his grip a fraction too firm, his alpha aura flaring in a desperate, wild attempt to force me to yield. We've been married for 3 years. My father built this pack with yours. You can't just let 40,000 wolves starve because of a mistake with a student. Ethan stepped forward, his hand on his silver-laced dagger, his eyes locked on Kian's hand on my shoulder. Take your hand off her, Alpha, Ethan said, his voice low and lethal. Kian looked at the Frostvale guard, then at my cold, unblinking eyes in the window's reflection. He slowly drew his hand back, his posture slouched, his knuckles white. It wasn't what you think, Elara, he whispered, his voice cracking with a raw, agonizing desperation. The photo. Lila drugged me. At the closing dinner, she put a silver lace suppressant in my whiskey. That's why I was so tired. That's why I couldn't wake up. I know, I said. Kian froze. You knew? The medical report from the hotel's emergency call was sent to my personal file. 3 days ago, I said, turning to face him. My face was calm, smooth and cold, like winter ice. The lab found traces of wolfbane and silver nitrate in your blood. She wanted you weak, Kian. She wanted you to sleep so she could take that photo and force me to leave. Then you know I'm innocent. Kian's face lit up with a sudden, desperate hope, his hand reaching out to touch mine. You know I didn't cheat on you. We can tell the council. We can reinstate the supply lines. You're not innocent, Kian, I said, stepping back, the space between us opening up like a cold, deep canyon. You allowed her to sit in your office because her white peach perfume made you feel like a young, powerful alpha. You let her criticize my ecological models because you were jealous of my talent. You wanted the prestige of my work without the trouble of my presence. I looked at his handsome, ruined face, the face of the wolf I had once cancelled a territory agreement to marry. Lila only did what you allowed her to do, I said. She was the poison, but you were the one who held the glass. The Frostvale Pact does not negotiate with poisoned alphas. I climbed into the passenger seat of the Land Rover, Ethan closing the heavy door behind me. As the engine roared to life, Kian stood in the wet parking lot, his head bowed, his hands clutched against his chest as the black car drove past him, merging into the cold, silent traffic of the Northern Highway. 2 weeks later, the winter blizzard hit the Black Spire territory with a savage, howling fury. The supply lines from the southern plains were blocked by 10 feet of snow, and without the Frostvale Eastern Corridor, the Pact's main storage facilities remained empty. System. Black Spire Pact Council emergency vote successfully completed. Alpha. Kian's leadership status suspended. I stood on the glass balcony of the Frostvale main villa, looking out at the white snow-covered mountains. The air was clean, sharp, and tasted of pine. Around my neck was the heavy silver chain of the Frostvale High Luna, a title my father had officially returned to me this morning. Elara, my father said, stepping onto the balcony behind me. He was a tall, silver-haired wolf whose presence was like a mountain of stone. The Black Spire elders have sent a formal petition. They've stripped Kian of his alpha title and banished Lila's family to the Northern Outer Pack. They want to know if you will accept their new alpha as your diplomatic partner. Who is the new alpha? I asked, my voice calm and clear. Bryn's brother, Ethan, my father said, a faint, proud smile touching his lips. He's a good wolf. He's spent 10 years managing the border guard and he knows how to keep a promise. I looked out at the wide, white horizon, the sun rising over the snow-covered peaks, casting a long, golden light across the eastern forests. Tell them the Frostvale supply lines will open tomorrow morning, I said, a genuine, beautiful smile touching my lips. But tell them the High Luna will manage her own territory from now on. My father patted my shoulder, his hand warm and solid, a hand that had never broken a vow, and never would. Welcome home, Elara, he said softly. I took a deep breath of the cold pine air, my heart feeling as wide and strong as the mountains before me. The black wolf on the cake had snapped its head off, but the real wolf, the one standing in the snow, her eyes bright with the light of a new dawn, was just beginning to run.